Okay. There it is. I think it's 4 o'clock, isn't it? Well, we're gonna have nutmeg here. There we go. It's in the cup. It is not Friday. It's Saturday, and we are live at the Nutmeg Tavern. This is a very special show because we had to reschedule for Friday. We aren't usually here on Saturday, so we might have new people that have never been to the Nutmeg Tavern before. And welcome, come on in. Come on into the Nutmeg Tavern. We've got it all warmed up here. There are drinks if you need some. You can go behind the bar because our barkeep isn't here because he doesn't work on Saturday. So that's all right. We got plenty back there, so if you'd like to come on in, plenty of seats for all you. In fact, we can fit an infinite number of people into the virtual Nutmeg Tavern, which is one of the cool parts about it. So welcome, come on in. I'm your host, John Townsend, and we're going to be talking about fun 18th century stuff today, even though it is Saturday. Normally, I am joined by Ryan behind the bar, and normally on the behind the technical equipment, the machinery, as it were, of the time vortex, Aaron would be back there. But because again it's Saturday, instead Ivy is on the machinery, as it were, of the time vortex, and helping us out with the questions and the super chat is Lauren. Now, normally, the camera would switch back there, but they're shy. But you're going to hear them as we go through this. So, how is our audio and everything? Is our thing working? Everything's good?
Somebody mentioned that you were a little bit out of sync.
I'm a little bit. Well, I can't fix that. So, Sorry, guys. The live stream does what it does sometimes, and sometimes that vortex machinery needs some wrestling. So sorry about that. If we're hopefully it'll sync back up. If not, try refreshing your screen. Sometimes that helps in the land of YouTube. If it's really bad here, tell me about it. We'll take a tiny little break. I'll fix it, basically hit it with a hammer until it's right, and then we'll come back.
Okay,
so
we're getting everything's looking good. So.
Great. I'm glad everybody is there.
I didn't do anything wrong.
Yay. Okay, good. The topic today will be eyeglasses. But before we get to that, thank you everyone for checking out our latest video. For some reason, I'm blanking on what it was. Oh, it was the fixing this recipe one where we worked on, what was that recipe that needed to be?
The lemon cheesecake?
Yes, that interesting lemon cheesecake episode that needed that kind of like, how do we make this turn out just quite right? Some really interesting things with those kinds of recipes and getting them to, sometimes you wonder what they were trying to achieve when they did it, if that's exactly what they did, but we expect something different. Sometimes it's expectations. Sometimes it might be a materials change. So occasionally we have to get in there with those recipes and, adjust them a little bit to get to where we think they ought to be. But that was a fun one nonetheless, and those are always fun experiments. Sometimes those cookbooks are like that, and they have a lot of sort of implied things. So the topic is eyeglasses, and you can see we've got a bazillion eyeglasses lying around here on the table. We have eyeglasses from the 18th century originals here. Here's a pair from, the 18th century. We've got some originals, a lot of originals for the late 18th century and early 19th century. Just all sorts of, eyeglasses lying about here. But mostly what we're going to be studying here are eyeglasses that exist either in paintings and pieces from museums. We're going to be kind of going through the timeline, the evolution of eyeglasses, and that's really kind of fun and interesting as we dig in. The artwork helps us with that a lot. The originals very rarely have dates stamped on them. Occasionally, you get lucky with that. But artwork kind of tells us something a little bit more about what's going on and what's, common with normal people. And it's interesting that we expect sometimes for there to be a really hard and fast evolution in something that's technological, like eyeglasses. But it's very fluid as they go through time. It's not like everybody has, Model 1 glasses and then 10 years later they have Model 2 glasses. Everything sort of blends together as we go through time. And so you'll find glasses coming in and out of style over 50 or 60 years. And so sometimes you'll see ones in paintings much later than you would expect. And other ones sort of pop up and disappear very rapidly. So it's a fascinating study as we go through. And eyeglasses are interesting because they start out pretty early. We can find fairly early, maybe even 12th or 13th century, 14th century, certainly, representations of eyeglasses in art, but they stay almost static until we get to the early 18th century, somewhere in the 1730s and 40s, and then boom, everything starts to change. So that's kind of fun with eyeglasses. So for lack of do we have anything you want to jump in, Lauren, at this point?
Okay, there's a super chat, but before the super chat, somebody whose name was That World War II Dude said that you inspired him to build a cabin and a little homestead to go with it.
Wow, that's a big project. That's a lot of inspiration. I must have been working pretty hard at that. Oh, before we get to the slides too, and what was the name?
That World War II Dude.
Oh, That World War II Dude. Ah, here we go.
Very descriptive.
I was confused by the name there. Before we go, and thank you. Before we get to the slides, I do have brand new. We got lucky enough with all the supply chain weirdness. Mugs have been really difficult to get here in the last couple of months, but we do have just in time for, just a little late for Christmas orders. We got some new mugs in stock. Not great quantities, mind you, but we do have some. A real fun. We took the Needs More Nutmeg design that's normally on another mug. I wish I could get this really close, but we've got a couple of mugs with this design on it. This very, very beautiful bittersweet color, and the nice barrel size. It's like a 16 ounce with the peacock and rust. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Peacock and rust. Yeah, and those have the Needs More nutmeg. And normally we try to have the design of the stag, what is tasty venison? What's it called?
Lord Savory Venison.
Lord Savory Venison. That's the name of the stag. Normally we would have mugs with him on here, but that didn't happen because. But we do have some Nutmeg Traders with the sailboat in this very large. Some people want the 24 ounce, lots of, maybe they want to fill this with some other adult beverage or whatever. And they need more, right? So beautiful green, this seafoam green, and Nutmeg Traders, and then the standard boar's head design on this black with blue. So if you so choose, and you're very interested in joining us with a Nutmeg Tavern style mug while you're watching a live stream, you can find those on the website. Is the link in the chat, or
we can try to get it.
They'll try to copy that into the chat for you. Okay.
Okay, so are you ready for some super chats and questions? Okay, so super chat number 1 is MD Smith 702 and says, "Thank you for the great content. Loved that recent sea pie video. I'm planning on trying out that recipe soon."
Please do.
So
it's
delicious.
a good one.
And then Max Harcool says, "Would normal people have eyeglasses in the 18th century, or was that something mostly wealthy people had?"
I would put it on the most common folks don't need to do a lot of reading. And I think a lot of close work and a lot of reading is why many people in the 21st century need eyeglasses, because as we go to school, we challenge our eyes to do things that they maybe really weren't meant to do. So people in the 18th century are living, more of an agricultural life, let's call it. And they don't strain their eyes the same way. And I don't think most of them need eyeglasses except for reading as they get older. And so that's the kind of eyeglasses that really are happening in the 18th century. I don't think there are very many nearsighted people in the 18th century, so there aren't very many people who need that kind of glasses all the time to see, out there, beyond them. Most of the eyeglasses that you see very, very early on are readers, and we'll get to that as we look at some of these images. And the readers, you don't need them for the same amount of time. And most people don't need readers until they get older. So I think there's both an economic thing going on and a needs-based issue. So they are an expensive thing, but I think one of the other images is going to show us maybe a reason to think that it's not necessarily just a rich person's kind of item.
Tammy Ellison sent in a super chat, and she says later that it's specifically for Ivy.
There, a special Ivy super chat. Thank you so much.
Okay, so do you want some questions? I already have some questions.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so somebody was wondering about people who were blind. She was referencing one of her ancestors who I think was blind for 56 years. So,
whoa.
And I hadn't thought to include any pictures of that, but if you wanted to touch on that.
Yeah, we do see images of, that. It's not necessarily something. So art in the 18th century, there is genre art. And then there's art that's sort of portraiture art, landscapey kind of art. And that day-to-day life art is called genre art. And in that time period, or, as we look at when we're studying art. And it's not as common in the 18th century for especially English painters. And you see almost nothing of that in American painters. There are very few American painters doing anything but portraiture in our 18th century time frame. But in the 17th century and earlier, especially Dutch painters are showing that sort of day-to-day life thing, rustic people and what they're doing. It's odd that the market for art, of course, is people that have more money, right? And why they are interested in rustic people and what's going on with them is interesting. I think that just that whole idea of why there are paintings of certain things in different time periods is a study in and of itself. We do have some of it going on in the 18th century, but normally it's for printed things. So for mass production, so like Cries of London and some, say, like Hogarthian art, which is almost cartoonish in a way, you do find images of blind people in that style of artwork. So you will see that, and sometimes I think you might even see people with the same kind of, blanked out eyeglasses, so that people just see the dark shades. That's a study in and of itself. So,
somebody was asking about Braille. And I don't know the history.
Oh boy.
I don't think it's quite 18.
Yeah, I can't tell you much about that that's an excellent question. Thought I can't answer.
Somebody was asking about pince nez. And we're
going to cover that.
Right, that'll come up later. Somebody was asking about the legend about Ben Franklin inventing eyeglasses. And he's bifocals, right?
Right. Benjamin Franklin invented it, or let's say he popularizes. I won't even say he invents them. A lot of things that people are like, oh, this guy invents that or not. No, they might modify them enough to get them to be popular. But yeah, I think what we find out is that he popularizes the idea of bifocals.
Somebody was asking how they decided on prescriptions and whether it was trial and error.
It's trial and error today. So yes, very much trial and error, except you don't have the guy telling you, this one or that one. You just try a bunch of things and then you pick the one you want.
Off topic, somebody was wondering if we'd done a video about fireplace styles and especially the tiles around them.
We didn't we do a tile one?
I think so.
I've done so many live streams and we talked about tiles. If we haven't done a tile one, yeah, we did tiles.
There was ice skating and there were lots of different things.
Yeah, we did
it's
the
probably
Dutch
in
tiles.
the archive.
Yeah. So there's the Nutmeg Tavern archive or the Nutmeg archive or whatever it's called. So many of the back catalog of live streams. We've done literally hundreds of live streams, and they would clutter up the channel on YouTube. So, and because they're sort of a bit more specific, we don't make them all public. We make them all public for a while, like a week or 2 weeks after the live stream. And then after that, they go into an archive that's unlisted. So you can find them, it's just a little more difficult. So go to the Nutmeg archive. There's a link down in the description section of this video, and that will take you to the unlisted archive playlist. You can go through those, hopefully, to find specific ones. Somebody might be able to help you out with that, finding that particular link and popping it into the chat. I don't think it's been that long ago since we've done that one.
No, I think it was relatively recent.
Yes.
Let's see. Somebody was asking about doing a small video about the difference, the reason why they had the S's that looked like F's. And I think
we covered that a million years ago. That was one of the very, very earliest Q&As.
Yeah.
And we probably ought to
probably
revisit that one.
Deborah Scotland says, "Merry Christmas, Townsends, and thank you, Lauren, for the wonderful images you find for us." And you're wonderful. You're very welcome. I enjoy looking for them. The hardest thing is cutting the ones that
You
don't
want to
really
know.
work.
It's like early on in the week she comes and she's like, well, I got 100. How do we get this down? And it's like, okay, we had it down to 50. We got it down to 40. I need 20, Lauren, 20. And it's very, very difficult.
There's so many just wonderful pictures to look for. So, okay, I think quick time to start the picture.
We're ready to go. We'll never get there. We'll never get through these images, guys. Let's go. Here we go. We're going to start off with our first image, and we have a printing shop. Now, this is fun. This is an early image, 1591, so 16th century. Printing going on here. Yes, a fascinating topic all by itself. And we've got to have this whole giant image just for this guy on the extreme right-hand side here. If you look at him, he is way over there and he's pointing to someone, showing this probably a little apprentice, something like, hey, you made a mistake here. More than likely, that's what he's doing. And he has a pair of eyeglasses of the 16th century on. Now, this is an early example of eyeglasses, and if you look carefully, we don't have a blow up of that, but there are no temple pieces. These are just, as the person said, a style of, not really, pince-nez, or these are, let's just call them an early style of eyeglasses. They have absolutely no temple pieces. How do they stay on your face? Good question. Do they clamp on your nose? Maybe. Or we don't know. Use glue. I'm not sure. Because they don't look like they're squeezing this person's nose. We'll go on, we'll look at some of the other ones. I wish I could spend all day on this image because there's so much to look at. Bullseye glass in the background. We've got these amazing printing presses to look at. We've got the clothing that's going on and all the equipment. There's even what's going on with that tray of water at the person's foot. We can see the shoes and they're tied with like bows. There's just everything to check out, and even the printing press process of, obviously they're printing out it looks like artwork, probably religious artwork, obviously the one that's in the very, very foreground here, but lots of work going on, making plates, printing things out. So I wish I could stay here forever. But on we go.
Yes. Sorry.
It's being bad there. Love the style of art here that is, what's it called, that trompe-l'oeil?
Does it say in the
Anyway,
in the title?
yes,
Oh yes,
yeah,
there it is.
Yeah. That sort of fake, sort of super realistic, or so let's say realistic painting that looks 3D. And so, you'd put this piece of art on the wall and you'd almost like want to go over there and pick the things off, even though it's a painting. Now, this whole idea here of something that you put on your wall that you would stick things to, sort of like a bulletin board. So the ribbons are on this, and you would, stick things behind it and hang things on it. So we have all sorts of things. The amazing pair of scissors over here that look just plain dangerous. We've got a quill. We've got a quill sharpening penknife. We have sealing wax. We have all these letters. Okay, the round thing in the almost middle, I don't know if I can identify that. We have a seal. We have another round thing that obviously is for something real specific. Booklets, a bone folder that you use to press down and fold papers. And then finally, the actual thing that we're supposed to be looking at here is a pair of eyeglasses. And these are Nurembergs. So you can pop to over here, Ivy.
So they can see Dad. Switch it to Dad so they can see him.
We'll get it there. We'll get there. She's too mesmerized by the image here. Here's a pair of Nurembergs. These are not period Nurembergs. These are a pair that Kevin Carter made for us. We used to sell these, I don't know, it's been 5, 6, 7 years. Who knows how long. But he made these for the catalog for a while. We still have one pair left. But amazing little eyeglasses. So these were specifically made in Nuremberg, Germany. They designed this particular kind of wire that would hold, it's sort of like a C-shaped wire, and you would bend the wire out into a big long strip, and then you'd bend it up into your Nurembergs. And you can see they're kind of springy, and they're made to sort of stick on your nose. And these work really well. You can see that the gentleman in that first image may have had something like this, but it's more likely that they were just a solid piece. So these early ones were solid in what they were. In other words, they weren't springy like this. They may have been made out, the early ones may have been made out of wood. They may have been made out of horn or bone or even leather, where they would just sort of make this thing. And they probably were very similar, and they sort of hooked on your nose. Again, this sort of pince-nez sort of a style. We even had a special little box made for them so that they fit perfectly in there. You didn't lose your glasses. There you go. So you can go back to the image there. But that's what we see here. And if we looked at a lot of different images, we might even see that same little wrapping that goes where it kind of hooks onto your nose. That helps the glass stay in properly, and it also helps it hook on to your nose. But here we see a pair of Nurembergs. Again, early pieces. Same thing here. So this is the image that I was alluding to earlier, talking about the idea of the kind of class of people that would be wearing something like these Nurembergs. Now, if we look really closely, if we sort of blew up his little box there that our traveling salesman has, there are Nurembergs, a couple hooked in. Now, these kind of door-to-door salesmen were selling fairly inexpensive items. They might have shoe buckles, at least in our 18th century time period. Shoe buckles generally plated and inexpensive or steel. So they're selling sort of inexpensive but fancy kind of things. Items that most any household would be able to purchase something of. And this salesman she's trying out a pair. He's probably have a couple of different strengths there. Again, they're mostly for older people who need magnifiers for reading, and that's exactly what we see here. The oldest person here in the frame, and she's trying them out. Yes, these I can use for reading. That's our, again, Nurembergs. We can even tell they're shiny and silver, probably almost exactly like the ones here that I was holding. Here, we're paired up with, again, probably a Dutch 17th century image on the left-hand side. Somebody who's winding their thread or their yarn that they've spun off of the spindle. She's taken the spindle off of her spinning wheel, and now she's winding it onto this niddy-noddy that she will use to transfer that yarn to something else. But we can see she's wearing a pair of some similar style of eyeglasses. Again, they don't have any temple piece whatsoever. And then on the right-hand side, we can see an original pair. They're not necessarily, maybe springy. It looks like they're probably springy. But they also fold up. We can see that center part is hinged. And we can really, talk about just an amazing thank you, museum, for giving us this wonderful close-up image. It's hard to say what the material is that is around the lenses. Could either be bone, horn, or ivory. Any one of those three items. I'm guessing horn by the coloration. And I don't see any grain on them. And generally bone, if it was that thin, would be a little too brittle. So my guess is that it's horn. But we can see, sort of almost forged out steel there. It's filed. We can almost see the filing marks on it. Tiny little rivets are glasses, and that little... it'd be interesting to see exactly how those fold up. They may reverse back on themselves and close up into a single item, or maybe they come together. I don't know. It'd be nice to know exactly. They must come together and close up. I don't know. I'm sure they wouldn't want us to go fiddling around and break their ancient glasses for them. Here we go. We've got a whole pile. This is probably an image from the Met, Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. And we get to see cases as well as multiple different styles of these similar. Some are Nurembergs, especially that very, very center piece looks like that. Or actually the one that's up on this right-hand upper side. Some of the other ones have hinges. Again, whether or not you would call those Nurembergs or just plain spectacles, and the sort of styles of cases that we have available. I love that case down at the bottom. That kind of carving work that we would see in 17th century pieces. Again, a couple close-ups. We're still early on for most of these images, especially the one on the right here. It's an earlier image. He's wearing or holding that same style. The woman on the left, though, that's later on. She's a very, very typical kind of later into the middle of the 18th century.
1754.
There we go. I'm not looking at the paper here, guys. 1754. And she still has that pair. Now, 1754, eyeglasses with temple pieces are available at that time period, but it's more than likely that this older style is still more popular, especially for people who just need readers for short periods of time. But by this time period, other styles are available. But again, there's no, if maybe these are handed down to her, or maybe she's just she doesn't need anything really expensive, so she's still using an older style of eyeglasses. Now here we go. This is one of the earliest images of a temple frame eyeglass. So go ahead and let me see. Oh, here we go. Can you bring me back to the? There we go. So one of the styles of eyeglasses that we currently offer are the temple Flair frame eyeglasses. So typical front style from the 18th century. These have a little bit wider between the eyes on these, and then it has a straight temple piece, and then generally a larger round end on it. Now, in the 18th century, these would be shorter. And you could see from that image, and we'll flip back to that image in a little bit, that the temple frame ones, they don't go all the way out over your ear. Now, we adjusted the design on ours because no one wants to wear them like that anymore. They're not easy to wear. These, we actually extended this piece so it gets it out over the ear. But generally, they stopped about here. But there's a really good reason for that. You can go back to the slide for me. There we go. So we can see one of the reasons why it's shorter in this image, and you can see it stops way before it gets to his ear. And that is, you don't want to mess up your wig. In the 18th century, wigs are very, very common, especially for people that are well-to-do enough to need and be able to afford eyeglasses. You don't want to mess up your wig, so your eyeglasses stop, and they're called temple frames because they stopped at your temples. This is these sort of show up in the evolution of eyeglasses somewhere around 1730 or so, and before that, no eyeglasses had temple frames. So if you see people like in some medieval guy in a movie and he's got eyeglasses on, no matter how primitive, if they have temple pieces, well, they just aren't right. They didn't do that. So they really start to show up in this first quarter or even the beginning of the second quarter of the 18th century. And these are a little strange because they aren't like loops, but they're solid little discs. Now, again, how do they stay on? They just sort of press in on the side of your head. And some of them, sometimes you see what was left of maybe thread or yarn or something wrapped around the loops to help it sort of grip on the side of your head. But again, how they actually, kept them on, who knows? I still believe that even in this style of eyeglasses, most people are using them for readers, and they don't need to have them on while they're doing sort of work or anything, It's not like you're outside, and you're wearing your eyeglasses. Most people are just using them for reading. Now, we get to, this is a mixed bag here. All these eyeglasses off on the side, they're all over the place. What we see on the left here are what's called Martin's margins. So there was I don't know if I'd call him eye doctor. Let's say an eye person. The idea of eye doctors isn't quite as, it isn't solidified as it becomes in the 19th and 20th century. But there was a person who specialized in eyewear in the 18th century, this Martin person. And he thought that one of the problems with people and their being able to see was too much light coming into the eye. And so the way to help that out would be to block some of the light. So he came up with this concept of having a larger eyeglass size and having that block all the light, and then the lens in the middle of that. And they were called Martin's margins because the margin of it is all blocked up. Now, the fun thing here with the image on that left is that we have a whole timeline of Martin's margins eyeglasses all over the place. We see on the extreme of the left side, on this extreme right-hand side, in the middle and above it, those are, and it looks like the one in the middle of the right hand or left hand side also, those are temple frames. So they're just straight and they only are like 3 or 4 inches long and then they stop. Those are early, probably. Some we can also tell by the nose piece and some other items here, kind of guessing their time frame and the diameter, that those are probably 1750, 1760. I think Martin's margins start out. He comes up with the concept somewhere about 1750, I believe. But we also have some ones that have like the very, very center pair with the little tiny thin wire. Those are very 19th century. That's a much later style. And we have some ones that are hinged here. The bottom corner are internally hinged, and those could be as early as 1755. And we have some that are hinged a different way, that sort of hinge down. Again, late 18th century. Are there any sliders? I don't see any sliders in there. So yeah, we have almost a timeline of eyeglasses right there, but all of those have that Martin's margins. And yes, on the extreme right-hand side, that single pair, we can get a close-up idea of Martin's margins, as well as the sliders on that. Now, those sliders are later, maybe 1800 to 1820 or so, by the way those telescoping slides go. Yes, Lauren?
Do you want to do a break for some more
Yeah,
super
we
chats
can
and
break
questions?
to...
Do you want to do the Patreon?
Yes, let's do Patreon while we're here, because time is just flying. We've only gotten through like 6 slides, guys. This is just terrible. We might have to push this one just a little bit later. There's just way too much to cover. I try to get to the brand new Patreon people every week. And the brand new Patreon people this week: Rebecca Rothgeb, Nancy Stinson, David May, and Scott Burton. And Patreon's one of those ways people can support us by sort of pledging this small amount of money each month. And that happens, you can check that out. There's a link in the description section. There are like specific levels that are set, but you can really choose anything you want. We do have some folks that help us out on PayPal. That's great if you want to do just like a one-shot. Hey, John, here, I want to support you. Here's X. Right? Christopher Ford, he's in there all the time. Thank you, Christopher Ford, again. And Denise Maloney Piran. Thank you, Denise. We also have people that support us on Townsends Plus. And of course, Townsends Plus is, well, it's what we do plus, right? If you want to see some special episodes with Ryan that you won't find on YouTube, or Brandon, or me for that matter, more than what we do on YouTube, sometimes experimental things, who knows what kind of fun stuff you'll find over on Townsends Plus. And yeah, I'm working on new stuff even now. Townsends Plus, new people: Jake B, Brian, Holden A, Lee Bob G, Sienna R, Naomi V, Anna H, TC, Kevin E, Myra A, Richard P, Vernon B, Isa D, Noah S, there's lots of people here, Jeremiah GM, Logan L, Michael B, and Amanda F, and even Landon M. So, very, very, lots of folks helping us out. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Jump into those. I'm ready.
Let's do some super chats. Okay, there's D.A. Riley, who says, we should get a pair of 18th century glasses for Joe Perrin next time he shows up.
See, now we specifically chose not to give Joe glasses because we thought his glasses were like part of his character, right? And so we said, and besides, we didn't have time to get his prescription.
Sue O'Connor, do you remember she had the cat last time and they were looking for a name? She named the cat Katie Mouser. Apparently she brought her a mouse, and she's watching too.
Oh,
and
they're wonderful.
She said that she's all white with one blue and one gold eye. So I thought she sounded beautiful.
Really?
Katie Alosi, so happy to make a live stream while it's still live. Thank you for a lovely time at the tavern. Merry Christmas to all.
Thank you.
And then Carl Vilmont, first with no comment, and then later with a comment, I'm so glad I was able to catch the live stream on this snowy New Hampshire Saturday evening. When did eyeglasses become used for distance and not just for magnifying to aid reading? Thanks so much.
Yeah, it can be hard to pin down those specifically because it's likely that, you know, people with specific needs that had a lot of money, like early on, probably had eyeglasses made specifically for them. So I'm not sure about that, how that is sort of those early iterations of that. Now, it's likely that glasses for nearsightedness don't really happen until, you know, into the mid 19th century. But I don't even have the specific information on that because it's really out of our time frame. It's one of those things where, you know, there are things like, say, wooden pencils. You know, wooden pencils you don't really see until the 19th century, but you do find 18th century examples, but they're like handmade, one at a time pencils. Probably the same thing with the eyeglasses. Yeah, there are probably, you know, one or two pair in museums that it's like, yes, look, this actually has, you know, concave instead of convex. No. Lenses in them, you know, reducers instead of magnifiers. But I don't have the specific information on that one.
A super chat from Lighthouse Ghost with no comment.
Thank
and
you.
Then a super chat from Phil Klum. Cheers to the Saturday crew. Are the eyeglass frames Townsends sells able to accept bifocal lenses?
Yeah, so the standard regular 18th century ones that have the hinged ones, a lot of people are able to get bifocals into those without too much trouble at all. The 19th century ones, so we do have 19th century glasses, and we'll probably get something closer to that. These have temple frames. They can be more comfortable for people, but this style of spring ear doesn't really show up until much later in the 19th century. We offer these because some people want something that still looks old, but isn't quite so clunky as the 18th century style. But even these, more than likely, modern optometrists can fit bifocals in them.
Oh, and do you want to just comment a little bit more on the fact that our eyeglasses, they don't have prescriptions, and we can't put prescriptions in, but...
Right. So, folks, we do sell the frames for historical things, but they just have a plastic trial lens in them, just so that they have something in there. And sometimes the optometrist will take these out to use them as the you know, template to cut the glass for them. So, but they don't have magnifiers in them or anything. Just a little trial plastic lens.
Speed and Style Tony sends in a Merry Christmas to Townsends and all the nutmeggers.
Thank you.
And I think that catches us up to... Okay, no, it didn't. Hold on. Gabriella Spalletta sends in a super chat. I love your show. It always cheers me up when I'm sad. Thanks, you guys.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And then Jed Rapol, love your content. Keep it up.
Well, we will. We'll do our very best.
Okay. Ready to go back?
I am ready to jump back in because time is flying,
It is.
people. Maybe I should stop talking so much. Here we go. Now, Lauren found this because it's so neat. This letter here, 1783, is written by General Gates in Virginia, and it is, if you can read it, I sent you the spectacles Mr. Dudley made for you, and for which I have paid $11 and 30 whatever, for your government. In other words, well, you know what, you can kind of imply that. Always happy in the occasion of seeing you. Believe me. Boy. Anyway, he picked up the guy's eyeglasses for him, sent them on, hopefully by this letter, and hey, you owe me $11.39 or whatever it is. I'm glad I didn't have to, interpret this young man's reading or this general's reading. Here on the other side, we have an image that is, yes, Rowlandson. This is the Merchant's Office, 1789, fairly early for Rowlandson. And we have this I don't know, maybe he's the boss guy on the right-hand side. He's got the big bill book right here by him. And he's got eyeglasses on, using them, of course, for reading. None of the other guys seem to need eyeglasses, but they're younger, So we get to see eyeglasses in use. So here we have good old Benjamin Franklin in one of his many images, paintings. And we see eyeglasses here. They don't look like bifocals on him, but he's always seen wearing eyeglasses. It's one of the things that's interesting about his portrait over many other portraits. Most of the portraiture in the 18th century does not show men with eyeglasses, maybe even if they wore them quite often, probably because it was maybe a sign of weakness. But obviously, that's not what Benjamin Franklin thought. Maybe he wore eyeglasses all the time. Maybe he thought they made him look more studious. I don't know. But we almost always see his portraiture with eyeglasses on. And here we have a pair of eyeglasses on the right-hand side. I doubt they were Benjamin Franklin's, but we see they are bifocals. Now, I don't think they would call that the...
They're Schubert's.
Schubert's. Oh, wait a minute. See, she's already put this wonderful. So, is that the Schubert
composer?
that we think of, the composer?
I
You
think so.
There we go. So Schubert, the composer, he obviously needed bifocals, and they are generally we see this that bridge style a little bit later, but the rest of the eyeglasses seem very late 18th century, early 19th century. The folders that fold in like that are earlier. That sort of teardrop at the end of the temple piece, yeah, that's 1790s or so. And I don't think that they would call those, what do they call them with the line that disappears, the invisible line of the bifocals? Obviously not those. Now, here we go. We get to see a whole bunch of these eyeglasses together. And again, a Met image. They like to make these for us. We've got some margins here in the middle, but just one pair. Again, we have a real timeline of eyeglasses. There's some temple frames here with the little short ones, and we got to kind of mix and match. We even see the kind with the solid loop, which is a little confusing. This on the top right hand, this solid loop that's sort of impressed. Boy, I'm not sure how to interpret those because of the way the rest of it is formed. They feel to me like they're actually later. This temple frame idea that starts in very, very early, so say 1730, 1740, with the little short temple piece, those stay around for a long time. You'll see them still showing up in art into the 1820s, maybe even later. So they stay in vogue to a certain extent, even while these other ones start to become more popular. Whether they fold in or they have longer temple pieces. We have sliders here. We have, I don't see any ones that fold sort of down. That top, the very, very top left-hand side, those hinge down or up, depending on how you can look at it. Unless those are very tight little hinges, you'd think that it wouldn't work at all for you. So, but we have all sorts of different styles. But look here at the middle and on the right-hand side, we see that this pair here, the temple frame, has thread wrapped around that. Again, that's probably to give that friction so that it stays on your head. But we can see all kinds of styles here. So, what do you do if you need bifocals, but they haven't invented bifocals yet? This image is, where is this image? Hold on. She put all this stuff in here. I love this one. Boy, a self-portrait of Rink Jelgerhus, 1791. It's got the mid 18th century style folding concept here, and you can really see what's going on with them. Look very closely at how the hinges go, and here you go, Ivy, pop back. Okay, so here's a actual pair from the 18th century, and you can see how that hinge, that's as much as that hinge opens up. And in that painting, you can see, or that little, it's like a woodcutty, engraving is what I'm thinking of. You can see in the engraving that hinge does not open all the way up and flat, but it's way out here, and there's a reason why it goes way out there. So your hair can get caught in those. And if it would lay right up beside your head, well, every time you take them off, you're just ripping out great chunks of hair. So whether it's to stay away from your wig or your hair, it's just the way they worked in that 18th century style. You can go back to that. So we can see on his that it stays way out away from his wig. And yeah, that's a wig. I don't think anybody would wear their real hair quite like that. And we have those wonderful the hinged up or down, sort of how do you get more than one magnification on your glasses. And I don't know if did you see any of this style of hinging in real examples?
I didn't see any real examples, no.
So maybe this is just a one-off pair that we only have one. Maybe he had his eyeglasses made special for him. I don't know, but we can see that he wants two different styles of magnification. Maybe he's old enough that his eyes, he does a lot of close work, because I think he is an engraver, I believe, and because it's a self-portrait, right? So he did that image for himself. But an important image. I really like that pair. This is great because this pair of eyeglasses with the sliders and the oval frame, which points to a little bit later period, gets shown with its case and the date. This is very early for this style of slider, as generally thought by people who date eyeglasses. So, typically you would put the concept of sliders into the early 19th century, maybe even this oval style of lens. But here, and generally you would think that you couldn't just fit any eyeglasses in that case. They probably are really specific for this. Unless the case is earlier, it kind of dates these at the very beginning of when this style of both lens shape and temple style really comes into vogue. So what's the time on this? This one, we don't know exactly on this. This artist was still, he's into the, from the mid 18th century to the very late. Apparently he dies in 1793. So, we could guess this is maybe 1780s or so. And okay, you got me what's going on here. She's got, this sort of temple-less frames that sit on your nose, and then what's the round thing on the side of her head? I don't know what it is. Maybe you guys can help me out. I don't know what that is. I was thinking that wouldn't it be neat? This made me think, you know, if you had like magnets stuck in your head, you could just stick your eyeglasses onto the magnets and then take it away. But that's not what's going on here. Obviously, somebody needs reading glasses. Now, there's more than one optical thing going on. Eyeglasses, so we've seen sort of pince-nez, the Nuremberg style, without any temples. We've seen regular temple frame glasses with hinges, without hinges, all over the place. But if you're other people, maybe you need other styles of eyewear. And we have two different things going on here. This is, they would have, theater was popular in the 18th century, and there was theater art. So painters would paint a scene with the actual actors for, the market. And this is John Quick as Toby Allspice and John Fawcett as Dashiell in the play The Way to Get Married by Thomas Morton. So the play is by Thomas Morton. The artist here is Samuel de Wilde, and this is 1796. Now, obviously, the gentleman on the one side is somebody very, very rich on the left-hand side here. He's got, all kinds of gold lace and all that kind of stuff. And he has this pair of, what are we going to call those? Lorgnet?
Yeah, I think so. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so you would sort of hold those up and you'd look through both eyes. It doesn't make any sense because, they'd like hit your nose because of the way that centerpiece is, unless you hold it up over the top. I don't know how you're supposed to look smart wearing or using those. And then we have the little single sort of magnifying glass. It's called a quizzing glass that the other gentleman has tied to a buttonhole hanging down his front. So you don't really kind of wear it like a monocle, but you hold it up with one hand. And here we have on the right-hand side an original gold, it looks just like the one in the painting over here. I think it's that. How ludicrous would you look holding that up all the time? But there you have it.
So earlier in the chat, somebody asked if monocles were cheaper or were they just because they looked cooler? Do we know the reasoning behind monocles instead of just glasses?
I think only evil people, right? Wear monocles. I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Not Lord Peter Wimsey.
Okay, not Lord Peter Wimsey. Pretentious? I don't know what to say about monocles. And other than quizzing glasses, I don't know that monocles come into the 18th century. I think that's a 19th century thing, but I don't know. I've never seen monocles that you just hold with your eye in our time period.
Could you tell them the name of the play again?
The name of the play is The Way to Get Married by Thomas Morton. And yes, wouldn't it be interesting to study plays in the 18th century? Only The Rivals is the only one, and maybe The Beggar's Opera are the things that are the only popular, if you call that popular, right? Popular for us to study, in the 20th, 21st century, that we even know of about things in the 18th century. There you go. So here we have some more lorgnet or lorgnet, depending on whether you use the English or the French pronunciation. And these probably can fold up. Some of them do, some of them don't. It looks like the golden pair we've got here on the right-hand side probably fold up, to be a little bit smaller. It looks like, the one in the illustration here probably is just a solid, solid little fancy thing. Again, these are, you don't see sort of workman style simple ones. All the ones you see of this style are just high end. Again, we would call them probably pretentious. Now, this is 1807, and it looks like we've got the slider style. We can't see what's happening at the very end of the temple piece. And we've got just the smallest little oval frames. This is probably the smallest ones I've seen. You very rarely see ones quite this small. How he sees anything through that little tiny lens, I don't know. But, you know, it happens. I love the painting, and boy, I mean, that's an outfit, isn't it? You know, really, really typical of that early 19th century stand-up collar that stays popular for another 10 years or so. And you know, he's got his own hair, obviously. This is, you know, by this time, wigs are out. And it's also one of the reasons probably why, you know, the temple pieces go, you know, the way they do, because you're not messing up your wig with those.
He has sideburns too.
Yes, and this artist is Rembrandt Peel. So out of the, you know, the many Peel children that are American, this is 1807. So this is some of the Peel children. So later on, and the sitter here is Rubens Peel. So yes, yeah, he really the elder Peel was very interested in art and in artists, and so he named his children after artists, famous artists. So these are very similar to what we just saw in our image. These are 1825, though, a little bit later, and made in Albany, New York. And this, we get to see the case that they go in, and we get a nice close up. You can almost, you know, reach out and touch these eyeglasses. So probably sterling silver and all that good stuff. Now, this artist had multiple. He would have multiple people sit for him, and he kind of painted them all exactly alike. Some of the cutout silhouettes are popular for this time period, but this is silhouette art. And we get to see these, even though, again, these are early 19th century, 1808, 1809. Thank you for, you know, putting the date in for us, artist. The eyeglasses are that earlier style. This, again, the hinge style that's showing up here was you know, invented about 1754, 1755. But that hinge style continues to stay popular for quite a while, obviously, still into the 1810s. And we do have that sort of teardrop at the back side of the end of the temple piece. That's probably about a 1790. That style of teardrop comes in later on. Looks like almost exactly the same pair. Now, love this image because this is a very famous artist. Self-portrait here, or at least a portrait of, I'm not sure exactly how to say his name. It's Chodowecki. Is my bad job of pronouncing his name. This is probably done about 1800 to 1809. And we can see his eyeglasses are, again, this very, actually earlier style that is as early as 1740 and as late as 1820. So this is at the very end of that time period. But by this time, this particular artist, who did lots of wonderful art in our time period, he's probably still wearing, he's still got his first eyeglasses, right? Yes?
Somebody was just telling a joke. She said that he looks like he's about to tell a dad joke that he just read.
Well,
he kind of does.
By his art, he would probably be the kind of person who would tell kind of, you know, dad jokes. Or really, I mean, it's funny how people's art really says a lot about them. Mm-hmm. And if you look at a lot of his art, and there's a bunch of it, he would like illustrate whole books of things. And you get a feel for a real homey, I mean, not quite Rowlandson, boy, there's a character. read, you can look into his art. Or Hogarth is another artist where you can really see something, you can read the character of a person. But he's a very fun artist. So we've got some, again, we're moving through time here, kind of pushing back into the 19th century. The green pair with the extra hinge and the two different colors, 1806 to 1830, and then the pair over here on the other side with the sort of violet lenses, somewhere in the 1820s. But they're very, very similar in their mechanics and their style here. It's very interesting, that extra hinge and the extra color. So there were concepts in the 18th century about colors of lenses being medicinal. Now, there's a common thing. It's like, oh, they're always for syphilis or something. That isn't always true. I mean, yes, that it might be true to some very certain extent here, but there's also people using them medicinally for other ideas. And there's still some people that hold to, and maybe some ideas coming back, that colored light does affect us differently. So I don't think they were all completely wrong about the idea of colored light doing something for us. I don't know what it is, but I like these violet-y ones looking over here. Sometimes, you can pop back over here, Ivy. Here's an original pair, probably, with the squarish frames, probably later, 1830s, 1840s, with the slider style, just like you saw on that pair there. This pair has the original glass in them, and it's green, obviously, and there's no prescription here. So some of these may be colored glass with a prescription, and some of them may have just been colored glass, like sunglasses.
And I think the pineapple has the other.
Oh yeah, the pineapple has a pair of, I don't know if those are prescription or not. Okay. I'll move faster. I know time, she just gives me too many to look at.
Sorry.
We have a gentleman here. He is Benjamin West. Again, a massively amazing artist. A real interesting story of Benjamin West, who's an American and who goes to England because and does his amazing art there because there's a market there, right, where there isn't in. So he's not doing just portraiture, but other kinds of art. This is 1817, and he has again earlier frames. These could be as early as 1755, or maybe 1780s, but still in 1817 he's got older eyeglasses. Maybe there's no reason to get the up-to-date style. It's like no, I like these. Let's see. We have these are both United States manufacturer, as far as we know here. 1830s on the one hand with the sliders, but they're damaged in the back there. And again, 1830s. The maker is S. White, and with again square frame, just like the ones I was holding up a little bit ago. 1820s to 1830s. Now, I love the next image. Obviously, I used it for the thumbnail on this. This person is Nathaniel Olds, right? This is the person who's sitting for this piece of art. This is 1837. Now, we get a whole different shape. We get sort of half and half. D-shaped lens. Moving as we move through time, they're getting more creative with their lens shapes. Probably some technology things going on there, or maybe just straight up style things. We've got sliders, and then we got these great hinged extra. What the heck is going on with the blocking the side light? So it says, Green spectacles worn by olds were designed to protect the eyes from the intensity of argand lamps, a type of indoor light used during the early 1800s. These lamps burned whale oil, and many people worried that its bright flames would damage eyesight. So, gosh, they're made to wear indoors at night, which is just crazy because I don't want those horrible lamps to hurt your eyes. And then we get a lower pair here. Again, now why would you need the side? Obviously, that you don't need. It can't. The bottom pair can't be because you're trying to block side light. So those must be more magnification or a different prescription because they fold up. Yes. Are you looking at me
I was
weird?
wondering if they were just missing their glass.
Yeah, well, there's a thought. This says that bottom pair is 1835, at least somewhere in there. So there we go. We're gonna stop in the time period. I mean, after we get to 1835, we're out of Nutmeg Tavern time period. So if you want to know more about glasses that keep going, well, I don't know, look it up on the internets or something like that. Anyway.
Okay, let's see. Oh, somebody was wondering if they were buried with their eyeglasses.
No, I would think it would be something that you would hand down. And if you went checking in inventories and wills, you would probably find them. They're, going to be a semi-expensive sort of thing. And it's likely that they would show up with that you would pass things on. I don't know that having things buried with you in the culture that we're generally talking about in this time period is a thing.
Somebody was wondering about assistance for the blind in North America specifically, and if we knew anything about that.
No, off the top of my head. I don't want to answer that one wrong, so I don't know.
And then somebody was wondering about eyeglass repair in North America, or I suppose written.
Shouldn't be a problem whatsoever. There are plenty of mechanics and people that would, be able to construct these sorts of things. There's plenty of talent in North America in this whole time period that would be able to make them for you, repair them for you. Generally, if you go looking in the advertisement section in newspapers, you'll find all these things. Now, many of them may have been imported, already, completely done, because it would be less expensive to have them manufactured in Great Britain and then imported into North America. But certainly, I'll bet you even somebody like Paul Revere could make you a pair. Maybe not the lenses, but the frames and whatnot.
Somebody was wondering about the live stream for next week. Because Christmas is right there.
Boy, I wish I knew. We don't look ahead that far. Generally, about 3 days is all I can do, guys. That's about all I do. And so, what's going to happen next week?
We might move it to Thursday, maybe?
Sometimes we do that. I would guess that we'll move it to Thursday. Well, I'll see. I don't know.
We'll see what happens. Somebody was wondering about whether there were more powerful prescriptions, like for people who wanted to do really close-up work, like maybe a watchmaker or a tinkerer or doing fine mechanical work.
If you look at some of the lenses in some earlier here, some of them looked pretty darn thick. Now, was it because the person just needed a lot of, a lot of magnification just because their eyes were that bad, or because they were, doing some very, very precise work very, very close? I really could not answer that one for you too well. It's a little hard to know unless we figured out how to get to some of the, the actual records, which I don't even know if those really exist. And another thing that is fun that we didn't get to touch on is that glasses and the lens material wasn't sometimes, and especially early on, it wasn't glass. It was actually, they were called pebble glass. and they were made out of like crystal, out of stone. So just really, really strange stuff.
Okay, let me get to my super chat screen so I don't miss any. Okay, let's see. Okay. No, I did that one. Okay, Speed and Style Tony. So back when we were talking about Benjamin Franklin, he says, Ben Franklin, the original nerd.
Super nerd.
That's right. And then Susan LeWay, a fantastic show today. Such a treat on the weekend, too. I wanted to say thank you to the amazing Townsend customer service team who went above and beyond with an order for me this week.
Those guys are super. Lauren, Angelina, they're amazing. Yes.
I'll make sure to pass on the message.
Yes.
Then Mummy of Anka with no comment.
Okay, thank you.
And then Shikomizu, Merry Christmas from Battle Creek, Michigan. Will you offer a Townsends Plus app to stream via iPhone or Apple TV? Great work, keep it up.
We're working on that. It's taking a lot longer than it should, but we'll see. We're working on it.
Forklift Certified says swag, possibly commenting on one of the more fancier pictures. Mm-hmm. And then John Talley says, can you get those last glasses in stock to sell? They might be the coolest glasses ever.
The ones that...
I think the Olds, the ones that Olds was wearing.
So cool. They would be cool, wouldn't they?
Okay, I think that...
We can try.
Okay, I think we're all caught up.
Okay, so a couple of quick thanks. Let's see. Do I have the name here? So I did have the name. I'm so bad. The name isn't here. Well, I'll talk about this one next week. Because I think it's Harper. Harper sent me this letter. Thank you, Harper, if you're out there. Thank you, Harper. And this by Jordan Hewitt. Jordan Hewitt sent me this really, really interesting book, Alex Stewart, Portrait of a Pioneer. And he's not from the 18th century, obviously, because, I mean, he's still alive for a photograph. But this gentleman was... I don't know, he probably dies in the 70s. But there's all these interviews with him. Somebody was interviewing him, and he's from the super backwoods of, Tennessee or wherever it is. Really, really interesting book, though. Kind of looking back into what life was like, in the 18th century or in the 19th century in this very, very, remote areas of Appalachia. And that, I think, really points to sort of what's happening in the 18th century. So it's just an excellent book and a really fun read. So thank you, Jordan Hewitt, for that book. Thank you, Ivy. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, all you folks out there that support us via Patreon, PayPal, Townsends Plus, supporting us via merch. Some of you folks are members on YouTube, which is just, there's like a million ways to help us out. So if you're a member here on YouTube, thank you for that. And you guys, even if you just like, hey, I just, check you out on YouTube, even that is an amazing support. Every time, somebody watches our video, that's like another little vote. Yes, we like this, we like this thing. That means a huge amount of difference for what we do on the channel. So thank you so much for your amazing support. And it's so much fun to come in and interact. You know what? All those guys on, television with big television shows, they're envious that we're able to do this thing that we're doing right now. They don't have the connection with the audience that we get to have, you and I, together right here on this YouTube, or right here in the chat and the comment section. They're working against a blank audience. But I know all you guys are out there and you get to, talk back with me and we get to have a kind of a conversation, which is truly amazing to be able to do this with people all around the world. It blows my mind every time I think about it. So thank you guys. I hope you have an amazing holiday season And thank you for coming in this Saturday, spending time in the Nutmeg Tavern today. I hope you have a great weekend. Thanks for watching.